Hello and welcome to our podcast called Encounters with God, Stories from the Old Testament. And today I get to be your host. I'm Dan Green, and the host has become the guest because our normal host, Bern, is today's special guest. Hello, Bern.
Oh, I feel special now. Thank you.
Good. You are in the hot seat today, my friend, which means you're in for a grilling. But we're also looking forward to hearing what you have to share. And as we've been talking about in the last couple of episodes, we're following different stories, different characters in the Old Testament and seeing what we can learn from them and how to apply that to our lives today. Today, I want to talk to you about something that we're running alongside that series of talks, which on our website is called Boxset, Binge the Bible. And that's a big title. I know you've been instrumental in kind of putting this together and encouraging us to consider it. So could you tell us what it is? What does it mean to boxset binge the Bible? And why are you a fan, Bern?
Well, I've been intrigued with it for a while, to be honest. It's taken me a long time, like years and years, to get to sort of wrestle with the question of how come I find it easy to boxset binge hours and hours of stories on TV or even podcasts, anything really. Sometimes there are things that I just get sort of swept along with, and the Bible, I feel I ought to, but weirdly, it's sort of lived in a different box in my head that said, no, you should study this at a pace of, 2 or 3 chapters a day, 15 minutes a day. That feels like a lot of effort. Can't possibly do more than that. And I wondered what it was that was making me sort of put the Bible in that box, a non-binging box, and have all these other boxes, which seemed really easy to binge. I got through Battlestar Galactica, which is 80 hours of stuff in about 6 months. That's the same. That's the same amount of stuff as in the Bible, basically. I got through Star Trek Deep Space Nine pretty recently in about 2.5 months because I was interested and I wanted to keep going and find out what happened. That's again a similar length to the Bible, and yet the Bible, like if you say, how long do you think it should take to get through the Bible? Maybe years, maybe a lifetime. If you look at the amount of stuff there is, I think, well, how come I'm not in the right frame of mind to treat this the same way as other stuff?
Is it a genre problem, Ben? Because the two examples you've given there of kind of science fiction, is the Bible just the wrong genre?
Maybe we should look at it as. I know some people do look at it as science fiction. Maybe that would have helped. I don't know. I don't look at it as science fiction, but there is a mixture, isn't there? There's a mixture of story. I think whenever I've tried to read the Bible through from beginning to end, I've found the beginning is much easier because there's loads of great stories, and then you hit this sort of rough patch where it all becomes about lists of things and then laws that sound really odd, and then it's like a whole nightmare. and if you're doing it at a pace of, I'm going to do a little chunk of this every day, you just go through day after day after day after day in this sort of wilderness zone. And it's also a really bad way to treat some of the stories I found. The story of Job, for example, has got brilliant stuff at the beginning, brilliant stuff at the end. It's all kind of nonsense in the middle, and it's a really difficult book to study at a pace of like a couple of chapters a day because you just spend all this time with all this nonsense. So I just wondered myself, what on earth can we do about that? And it gradually dawned on me over time that the bulk of people who've experienced what's in the Bible over centuries, over the whole history of what's been in the Bible, have heard it rather than read it. It's been read out in gatherings. It's been talked about. It's been passed on and gossiped about. It's been, you can go through the whole thing. Yes, there are times where you have to sit down and memorize some bits. If you come from a Jewish background, you will go through the first 5 books of the Bible quite diligently. But a lot of the rest of it, and a lot it's existed in times when people weren't expected to pick it up and read it for themselves. So we've loaded that expectation onto us. And I don't know about you, I find reading books in general. Sometimes it's a joy, but often I prefer the audio version anyway. I can have the audio version on and get through a ton of books. So why not do that with the Bible? And I realised, actually, if the amount of stuff that's in the Bible, there is a very good audio Bible, by the way. David Suchet, a few years ago, recorded a brilliant English accent version of the Bible. I think sometimes the audio Bibles, to me, felt off-putting because they were clearly from a different culture, and they felt cheesy and horrible, and like I struggled to take it in or take it seriously. But David Suchet is just brilliant.
Everyone loves a bit of Poirot.
Absolutely, yeah. And just the idea of listening to it instead of reading, at whatever pace you do. I think I went through a year doing a Bible in a year pace of just listening instead of reading, and I just found new things grabbed my attention and new things came to life, and that's always a good thing.
And I think that's what I wanted to ask you is what do you see as the benefits of kind of listening approach or reading at pace rather than studying, which sounds like that was the mindset you were in, and I guess probably lots of us could relate to. But what's the benefits of the kind of the binge approach?
Well, first of all, I mean, just getting the Bible in general, I think is a really good thing. However, at whatever pace, I think the Bible is just amazing. It's big and daunting, but it's also this kind of amazing collection of things that kind of talk to each other. They're interconnected in interesting ways. So although we probably kind of remember like a few of our favourite Bible stories and treat them as if like, oh, there was a moral in that and there's a thing I need to do because of that, actually it's a lot more than that. The Bible's much more of a kind of a network of things. I think a good way to look at the Bible in general is like a road, or maybe a network of roads that covers quite a big territory of life. And there are two ways that you can kind of approach a road. If you want to understand it, you can go and study little bits of the road. Hey, here's how the road's built. This is what this bit of the road looks like. This is my view from this bit of the road. Okay, that's great. And you can go and very methodically take a slow walk, studying carefully as you go. But actually, I think the roads are there to take us to places. They're there to give us new outlooks on things. And the best way to travel on the road is at a bit of speed, right? So you miss some of the details. You're not paying attention to every bit of gravel or every marking on the road. You're taking in the scenery as you go, and there might be some details that you zoom past a bit. You might want to stop and get out and have a look at something that seems really important, really interesting. But crucially, I think it's worth following this network of roads to be somewhere else, because where people start and at the beginning of the Bible is very different from where people end up in different places. And I think that's, without going through it at some pace, it's easy to lose the big picture and the scope of that.
Yeah, and I guess that maybe helps to answer some of my next question, which was the why bother? I guess for a lot of people listening, they might wonder why to invest the time, why dig into stories that are maybe difficult to understand or complex or problematic, things that don't kind of seem to immediately chime with modern life and kind of our current values.
Yeah.
Why go through that kind of wrestle, and why not just fast forward to the bits that maybe make a bit more sense, or particularly the bits about Jesus where many people find so much inspiration. Sure. Why trawl through the earlier stuff, I guess? Right.
So loads of good questions in there, basically. I think on one level, sort of why bother with the Bible at all if it's old? I think my simplistic answer to that is simply that actually it reflects a lot of life that is very relevant to us. from the very beginning, you see people who are dealing with things that we deal with, whether it's anger and resentment, or should I forgive someone or not? How do we seek justice in the world? How do we seek? How do we have justice but also forgive people? How do those things go together? What's the role of my kind of pent up sort of difficult feelings, and what's the role of love and other things that I could choose in my life that might make life better for me and for other people? And where's God in all of this? Is God real in all of this? How have people seen God working in history that gives us a sense of, oh yeah, that's the same God that we could get to know and apparently loves us too? These are all massive questions, which I guess if we're interested in them, the Bible is a brilliant source of where to go and immerse in that. And if we're looking at the later bits then of the Bible, like where does Jesus and his followers come in, we're looking at a culture that had thoroughly been immersed in what we call the Old Testament for centuries. The whole society was built on things that they expected from their history, that was all built on things that had been passed along in those stories and those laws and those poems and those prophecies and all those things that are in the Old Testament. So it's almost impossible to enter the mind of anyone in the New Testament without knowing the Old Testament, or at least, starting to get to know it. I think what you find with people started following Jesus, the first people that started following Jesus were the people who had been paying attention to all that stuff and were part of the Jewish family. But then, amazingly, the doors blow off of that, and what Jesus calls the kingdom of God it becomes open to everybody, including you and me, because we're not Jewish from our background, and so we're kind of guests in this kind of very interesting, very old house, and it seems like, well, we should probably get to know some of the features and how it is the way it is. Otherwise, I guess we'll always be trying to make sense of it from a point of view that might never make sense. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I love that picture of being guests in a very old house. That's really helpful. Just needing to kind of orient ourselves a bit and become familiar with the different aspects of the house, as you say. Yeah, that's great. And you've provided a list of very helpful tips on the sevenvineyard.org/Bible page, which is where we've got some different structures of how people might approach box set binging the Bible.
Yes.
And one of those that caught my attention was the one about studying a bit but sharing a lot. Again, it's just part of that slight shift in our thinking. Why do you think it's important that we press the pedal a bit on sharing what we're listening to, what we're reading, rather than it just being kind of an internal and introverted exercise?
Yeah, good point. I think there's a real value in engaging with the Bible. So, but there's different ways to approach that. And when I was a teenager, I was brought up with this classic model of Bible study, the daily quiet time. Set aside 15 minutes, ideally at the start of the day. It wasn't for me, I'm not really a morning person. But some sort of sacred time where you can clear space and hopefully God can be brought to mind for us. And that is a beautiful discipline, which over years for me has just kind of fragmented into having lots of quiet times and times of prayer or asking God and trying to listen to God, like wherever we are, like this afternoon, a bit of a crisis in IKEA. We're sat down, I'm praying, having a quiet time. So
hang on, Bern. I thought the idea was that the more you got to know God, the longer your morning quiet time would get. I mean, that's what I was raised to think too.
I wouldn't want to criticize anyone who thinks that works for them. I'm just going to say it didn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. And I think the whole idea of linking the Bible with study, like you cannot unlink Bible study, it just it just means that we're trying to take in the Bible differently from everything else in our lives. Like who has news study or book study? I suppose you might if you're at school and you're doing an exam, but we're not taking in the Bible to pass an exam on it. We want it to kind of, I don't know, have an effect on our lives somehow and take it in somehow. But if there's not going to be a test, why not just consume it the way we consume the things that we do binge? This was the thing that kind of crossed over from breaking me out of, like, I can't read the Bible in less than 3 years, to actually we could get through the Bible in 3 or 4 months if we wanted to. And so, yes, there's a place for studying and stopping and looking at the details of little bits, but I think the thing about going at it at a pace is loads of it kind of hits you, and then you're left going, what hit me the most? What's really grabbed my attention? How is this really kind of how is this connected with something else in my life? And then the point of sharing about that and chatting about that is that's kind of where the seed from that kind of starts to grow into, oh yeah, there's something going on here. I think I connected with something that I heard, and I've been thinking about it since then, and I'm recognizing that it's important to me, and I'm recognizing that it might have an impact in how I choose to live, and that's where it's really taking hold then. And not every detail of every Bible study will do that for us, but I think when we go through at a pace, we're quicker to get to bits that do, and then God can speak to us through all of them.
Absolutely, and it's just great to hear your passion for this, Bern, and I know that will rub off on me and on others who are listening. So maybe we should draw this episode to a close, but before we do, why don't you just give us a little preview into how it's going? I know that you've already started this binging journey, and what we're going to chat about in next week's episode. So
I put up a plan at sevenvineyard.org/Bible for anyone who wants to 100% the Old Testament. I split it into 100 chunks. It can be done over any number of days you like, really. I'm finding I'm not neatly doing one chunk a day. I'm spending some days doing like 2 or 3 chunks, and then some days not doing any. And it just depends on what else is going on, or where I put aside some time to do it, and maybe do something else at the same time while I'm listening and letting it kind of hit me. I've started at the beginning. I've got all the way through Genesis and a little bit into Exodus. But yeah, let's talk next time about Genesis, because it's a really cool book.
Brilliant. Looking forward to hearing what you're discovering. And thank you so much again for being our guest on this episode, Bern. And we'll look forward to speaking again soon. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode.